AEW.com live recap of AEW Dynamite Winter is coming 2021. Shout out to everybody in the chat room for tuning in, and shout out to everybody watching this on demand. I appreciate your viewership and support. Let's get right to this recap. We started off on a very big note. We started off with the AEW World Championship match. Bryan Danielson challenging Hangman Adam Page for the AEW World Championship. Bryan came to the ring first. We had a recap of Bryan beating the Dark Order members one by one leading up to this match. Justin Roberts was back this week to do the ring introductions. And we started off with a stare down between the two guys. There was an AEW chant right when the bell rang. Crowd did the Let's Go Bryan cowboy shit dueling chants. Bryan was taking it slow. They were having the feeling out process, which in other words means it's going to be a long match. It's kicking off the show. World title matches have 60-minute time limits. When they start off slow like this, you pretty much know it's going to be a long match. Bryan was doing some jumping jacks. He was playing the mind games with the Hangman. Bryan kept stalling a little bit. Anytime Page would start to get some momentum, Bryan would go into the ropes, forcing Page to back off. Bryan would then go for the handshake. Of course, Page would have none of it. And Bryan would once again go into the ropes. Bryan got the upper hand for a while, worked over Page, did some of his signature moves. And then Bryan went for a dive, but he got hit with a big boot instead. And then Page did a dive to Bryan. They got back in the ring. And then Page came off the top rope, but Bryan caught him with a kick, regained control of the match. Page then made a comeback, hit his trademark moonsault to the outside of the ring, and then Page got Bryan back in the ring, went for another moonsault, but missed. Match started to go back and forth, several near falls. Page went for the buckshot, but Bryan rolled to the outside of the ring. Bryan regained control for a while. He set Page into the ring post, and at this point, Page got busted open. This was about a half hour into the match. We were 30 minutes into the match. Adam Page was busted open. Bryan went after the wound. He put on the cattle mutilation submission, but Page was able to get to the ropes. Then we got to around the 40-minute mark of the match. Bryan, his leg ended up getting hurt. Page went after the leg of Bryan, put on the figure four, but then Bryan came back. They were both on the top. Bryan hit a suplex, a back suplex off the top. And then Page came back from that with a deadeye on the apron, knocking Bryan to the outside of the ring. Page went up to the top and he went for a dive to the outside, but Bryan sidestepped him and Page went through the announce table, or the timekeeper's table, I should say. Announcers are up on the stage. Timekeeper's table. Bryan hit a DDT on the exposed cement. They got back into the ring. Bryan went for another suplex off the top, but Page was able to land on his feet, and then he hit the discus lariat. They started trading blows. We were about at the 55-minute mark. This was, at this point, the longest match in Dynamite history. I think this ended up being the longest AEW match of all time. I'm not sure, though, but definitely the longest Dynamite match of all time. The match continued, and Bryan went for the running knee, but Page hit the deadeye. Bryan kicked out of that. And then Page did what Bryan did to so many members of the Dark Order. Page started kicking Bryan's head in and then took his elbow pad off. He was going to go for the buckshot lariat, but Bryan caught him, put the label lock on. We had about a minute left of the match. Page was able to break out of it. He hit the buckshot lariat, but could not make the cover. He went for a second one. He hit it, but then the time expired. 1 hour, time limit, draw. Bryan Danielson and Page went the full hour, no winner. Crowd chanted 5 more minutes, but they did not get 5 more minutes. That was that. This did take over the first hour, including the entrances of Dynamite. Now, my take on the match, I thought it was very good. Very good match between these guys. Was it the match of the year? I would say no. In fact, I would say this wasn't even the best Bryan Danielson match of the year. I'd probably go with Bryan and Omega for the best Bryan match in AEW so far. And I would say the best Bryan match of the year was from WrestleMania 37, the triple threat match. But it was still a very good match. My problem with it is that from the first minute of the match, I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to go 60 minutes. And to me, I kind of just felt bored with it at times because I already figured it was going 60 minutes. And I did not buy into the false finishes. And to me, the fact that I could already sense it was going an hour kind of ruined it for me in a way. But technically, it was really good. Was it the best Iron Man match of all time? No, I would not say so. But it was very good. It was a very good match. I do not think it was the classic that some people on social media are making it out to be. I mean, it was really good. I'm going to give them credit for going out there for an hour and having a really good match. But I do not think it was a classic. My opinion, I think Page should have won a 30-minute match. Let them have a long match. You can get the same story told that both guys are evenly matched and it's a hard-fought battle, and let Page win his first title defense. Instead, he could not beat a guy in 60 minutes that lost to Roman Reigns in less than half the time. So in kayfabe terms, Page could not put away a guy that lost to Roman Reigns earlier this year in a match half the length. And in fact, Reigns beat 2 guys, a triple threat match, in a much shorter time. I think it kind of makes Hangman Page look weak, but I know some people are like, well, they're evenly matched. They went the distance. And I think also if they hadn't already done the Omega and Bryan draw, then this might have been a little bit better. But the fact that we already saw a draw with Bryan 3 months ago, I'm sure some people are going to be unhappy with my thoughts. But again, very good match, maybe a B+, solid B+, but I would not give it an A. That's my take on the match. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me. I've seen tons of comments on social media saying it's the match of the year contender. I respectfully disagree with that. Joey Perez said, I would have had Hangman Adam Page pin at the time limit. I would have preferred that. I mean, I think they could have gotten the same story across. I think Page should have won, regardless. I don't think they needed to do a 60-minute match. I think they could have done a 25, 30-minute match, had it be really great, and Page could have got the win to really establish him as the guy in AEW. Now it's disputed. Is he really the guy? Bryan could have taken the loss. I think at this stage of the game, Bryan should be putting over other guys. Now, people are going to say, let it play out. You know, maybe they'll have their rematch and Bryan will put him over. But where do you go from here? You just did a 1-hour Iron Man match. Like, where do you go after this? How do you follow that? How do you follow a 1 hour match with these guys? I've never been the biggest fan of the long, drawn-out matches. I was never a huge fan of the Bret Hart Shawn Michaels match. Yeah, the athleticism is impressive. To go out there for an hour, not many people can do that. But Broadway was never my favorite type of match. Iron Man matches, whatever. I much prefer a 25, 30-minute match if you're going to do a long match. Just my own personal taste. Walter Cruz says Paige could have survived the LaBelle lock when time expired and never tapped to stay strong. Atomic Cody says folks are going to defend the finish based on the quality of the match. Well, of course. So yes, this was a Rift rant. TJS says Meltzer is going to give it 7 stars. He'll probably give it 5, my guess. Jorge says I would have preferred a DQ. Again, I don't think they needed to do a DQ or a count out or a time limit draw. I think Paige should have beaten Bryan Danielson and have him established to the masses as the guy in AEW. So anyways, that took up pretty much, well, more than half of the show. I mean, that was really about 55 to 60 minutes plus the entrances. And another thing, and this is the same thing too with WWE TV matches, that when they do the long matches, the commercials do hurt a little bit. It kind of hurts the flow of the match a little bit, although you do need your break or whatever. And Walter Cruz says 2 draws does get stagnant. Jonathan Perez says AEW has an issue with all the matches being long. And that's the thing. It starts to just be a bit predictable after a while when you know, and maybe some people thought that this match would end sooner, but you kind of know from the beginning of the match how they start doing the feeling out process and all that. You kind of know that it's going to be a long match, and then you kind of know how everything's going to play out. Like the match is just structured a certain way, and you kind of know how it's going to go. Anyways, we're going to move on here and talk about the rest of the show. Wardlow versus Matt Sydal. Basically a squash match. Poor Matt Sydal. I mean, really, Matt Sydal's doing what he should be doing and putting over the younger stars. You know, his time has come and gone. Wardlow completely destroyed him, and Sean Spears told Wardlow to put him out of his misery, so Wardlow did. Hit the power bomb, and then pinned him 1, 2, 3. Afterwards, Sean Spears got in the ring and used the chair on Matt Sydal for good measure. And I like this. I like the squash matches. I like building up Wardlow as a monster. I was totally cool with this. Good stuff here. We had a Malachi Black video package, and he was walking around his house talking about humans being cruel. Kind of felt like the same stuff he was doing in WWE, those same videos, and kind of feels like the same pattern where Black comes in hot and then kind of cools off a little bit, and then they start doing all these video packages. And what's going on with Miro, by the way? Like he's been doing these video packages for weeks, and there was nothing this week, although they were kind of short on time this week to include a ton of different video packages. Serena Deeb versus Hikaru Shida, right around the 9:20 mark of the show. And this was a good match. Deeb worked over Shida's knee for a while, used the ring post like Bret Hart used to do for leverage. Shida kept struggling to build up some momentum. Finally, Shida busted out a Falcon Arrow. Both of them got back to their feet, but Deeb was able to get Shida down again, put on a single leg crab. Shida was able to get out of that, and then Deeb got knocked into the turnbuckle, and Shida turned that into a jackknife cover, easy for me to say, and got the victory. Like I said, good match here. I still wish Deeb would get a bigger push here, and this was the rubber match. Shida wins the rubber match. I guess that can set her up for another opportunity at Britt Baker, or maybe she'll go after the TBS title. But this was good. I still would have preferred to have seen Deeb pick up the win here, just because I'd like to see her get a big run, maybe towards the AEW Women's title at some point, whenever Britt loses it, or maybe go for the TBS title, and maybe she will. We had our main event of the evening, which was MJF versus Dante Martin for the Dynamite Diamond ring. And they claimed that the ring is worth $100,000. MVP cut a promo before the match, which might have been the highlight of the show. I'm a sports entertainment guy. I like the talking segments. I like the male soap opera aspect of wrestling. I know people are like, well, it's wrestling. You watch wrestling for the wrestling. I watch wrestling for everything. I like the wrestling, but I like the promos. I like the characters. To me, wrestling is a male soap opera. I like the characters and the talking and the trash talking and all that stuff. Anyways, MVP cut a promo, said that Texas is a goddamn dump. He said, hey, Texas, your daughter swallows. And he said that all CM Punk had was 10 minutes of a promo last week where he said, your local sports team sucks. And he said that CM Punk just wins pointless matches against underwhelming opponents that are underwhelming themselves. And then he said, is he really CM Punk, or is he the new Ryback? And apparently I called MJF MVP by mistake, so I apologize to MJF for that. I really hope he doesn't watch this. He might, though, and he might not be amused. I meant MJF, so I screwed up. As Noah Foster would say, botch. But yeah, CM Punk was called Ryback by MJF, and that was pretty funny. I'm sure Ryback will have a response to that. MJF said that Dante is very talented, but he's in a lot of trouble. And we had our match. Dante had a hot start. MJF quickly escaped to the outside of the ring to try to slow down Dante's momentum, and that worked out for him. MJF picked up the momentum, and he tried to pin Dante with his feet on the ropes. Referee caught it. Dante made a comeback, hit a big dive to the outside. He hit a shooting star press to the outside, and he kind of overshot a little bit, and Dante pretty much smashed his face on the floor. His knee got MJF, and the announcers were playing up on that. But yeah, it looked like it hurt Dante more than MJF. And then back in the ring, there were several near falls. They just kept trading near fall after near fall. Dante then hit his finisher, the springboard moonsault. But Ricky Starks showed up and put MJF's foot on the rope. Referee broke the pin, stopped the pinfall, and then MJF took advantage of the situation, put on the salt of the earth, and scored the submission victory. After the match was over, FTR came into the ring for the big celebration, and then the lights went out. We started seeing the cell phone lights come on, and I wonder if some people thought a certain someone was going to show up at the end here. But instead, it was two familiar faces, Sting and Darby Allin. Why they needed the lights to go out, I don't know, and give people the impression that maybe there's going to be a surprise debut. Like, why not just have Darby's music play or something? Kind of weird that they did that, to make you think that maybe there was going to be a big surprise. But it was just Sting and Darby Allin, and they attacked FTR, but they got overwhelmed. Crowd started chanting for CM Punk, and that's when CM Punk showed up with a baseball bat, chased off the bad guys, and then issued a challenge, a 6-man tag team match challenge for next week's show. And this was a WWE moment. They immediately had a graphic up. How did the production guys know that CM Punk was going to issue a challenge? They had a graphic literally up on the screen 5 seconds after CM Punk issued the challenge. So that was a little bit overproduction, in my opinion, overly choreographed. Like, you don't put up the graphic immediately after he issues the challenge. Just a little too squeaky clean with the production. And that was the show. They're doing the 6-man match next week. Throughout Dynamite, they also hyped up some Rampage matches. And overall, very good show. Very good show. I give it a B+, but I don't think it was an A. I actually thought last year's winner was a more memorable show, with the title change, Omega winning the title, Sting's debut last year. I thought that was a better Winter is Coming than this one. But just my opinion. Crowd was really good as usual. That definitely helped with the atmosphere. Let's see what you guys thought. Some people agreeing with me. MVP Kev, Nick Lavin, Mark Del Rio with a B+. There you go. Looking at the poll, 61% thumbs up, 17% thumbs middle, 13% thumbs down, and 9% did not watch. Josh Mansfield says the ending of the main event was dumb. Tony not making the final match announcement was meh. C. Oh yeah, I guess that was the Tony Khan announcement. They were going to announce an upcoming match, and I guess that was it. Joey Perez says if Hangman won, I would have given it an A. Yeah, I would have bumped it up to at least an A- if Paige won the match. Walter Cruz says, can't rate. I missed it, but the review gets an A. Well, thank you, Walter. I do appreciate it. So, if you guys did like the video, please spread the word, share a link to this video on social media, tell a friend, and if you didn't like it, I apologize, but I want to give you guys a fair review, and I gave you my thoughts on it. And not every show is going to be the greatest show of all time. Take care, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you didn't, again, I'm sorry. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest wrestling news and rumors. And I will see you all next time.